All right, for this lesson we're learning about composite solids and how to find the surface area. A composite solid is just a figure that is made up of more than one solid. So for instance, this would be considered the composite solid, which is, if you break it into pieces, is made up of a cylinder and a cone. So a composite solid, you can just think of, they just took several shapes that you already know how to find the surface area of and squished them together to make other shapes, or bigger shapes. So let's look at example 1. Okay, for this example, all you're going to do is look at this picture and try to identify some of the solids that make up this fort. Well, the first one right at the front, really easy to see, is this tower, I guess, and you can tell it's got a cylinder on there. Okay, another one that you could look at is this shape right here. Roughly makes a rectangle, and it would be a rectangular prism. What about this shape way up here? Also, whoa, that's a terrible line. I got a new pen, so this is very sensitive. Okay, this one also roughly makes a rectangular prism. Okay, so these are just things you look at when you're trying to find the approximate surface area. Luckily in your homework they're going to give you more specifics. So, all right, let's do the next example. All right, for this example, you painted the steps to an apartment green. What is the surface area that you painted? So we're not finding the surface area of the entire steps, we're just finding the surface area of the green part. So we're going to break each of these into two pieces. For the top step, you can find the area of the rectangle by doing, well, we would just want area of the face. We don't want the whole thing. So we would do length times width, which is 2 times the length of it would be 24. 20. So you would do 20 times the 24. And then you also need to add the 7 times the 24, that little front piece. Okay, so we figured out this length was 24 because this length is. The width is 20, so we did 20 times 24. And then we have to do 24 times 7 to get the second part. So then that surface area, when you multiply and then add them together, would be 648. Now the bottom step, you're going to do 24 times 10 to get the top part of it, and then 7 times 24 to get the bottom part of it. And then you multiply and add those together. And then to get the entire green portion, you're going to add those two totals together. 648 plus 408 equals 1,056 square inches. So according to our multiple choice, D is the correct answer. Okay, so you're just breaking composite shapes into pieces to find their surface areas, and then you add them together. So let's do an on your own number 1. Grab a piece of paper. Okay, so the total we got in the last one was, all right, on your own number 1. What if, in example 2, you also painted the sides of the steps green? What is the surface area that you painted? 1056. So I'm going to go ahead and write that up here. So we had 1056. But now we have also painted, you see I grabbed this picture, we painted this portion of the steps green. So let's break these into two pieces. So if I were to draw this shape, roughly, bottom step, top step, doesn't have to be perfect, okay? If I break this right here, we know that the width of this is 20, and then we know the depth would be the two heights of these, right? So 7 and 7 would be 14, and then this is 10 and this is 7, because this was 7, remember? So I could do 20 times 14 to get the first part, and then I add that to 10 times 7. So 20 times 14 is 280, plus 10 times 7 would be 70. gives you 350. So 350 is for that front face. But remember, there's another side to this set of stairs, so we need to multiply that times 2 to get 700. And then you add 700 to the 1056 that we had earlier, plus 1056, that's for the rug going down the carpet. And our total surface area for this set of steps would be 1,756 inches squared. Okay, so if you need the visual, don't be afraid to draw your shapes. It will help. All right, let's look at example 3. Make sure you're putting this in your journal. So they want you to find the surface area of this composite solid. So let's talk about what this solid is made up of. The solid is made up of a square prism and a square pyramid. Okay, so square prism and a square pyramid. Use the surface area formulas for a prism and for a pyramid, but do not include the areas of the sides that overlap. So you got to think about the fact that this top part of that square would not be included in the surface area because that's inside the prism. It's not on the outside of the surface. Okay, so let's start with sorry, I couldn't get it to go through. This is talking about, and again, the base of the pyramid we're not going to include for the surface area either because that's on the inside. So let's look at starting the square prism. So remember, the square prism is the slant height, LW, times 2 LH, length times width. I'm sorry, this is the square prism, so we're doing this left side. So that's length times width plus 2 of the length times height plus 2 of the W times height. The only change here is we're only doing one of the, because we're just doing the base part. We're not going to include that top part. So that's why there's only one length times width there. So we plug everything in. Length times width is 6 times 6. And then to do one of the longer sides is 2, because that's the height. 2, because there's 2 sides, of 6 times 4, base times height. And then 2 of the top of the shorter squares, which is 6 times 4. So then you multiply those, you get 6 times 6 is 36. 2 times 6 times 4 would be 48. And then another 2 times 6 times 4 would be 48. Okay, so that's the bottom of this square prism, not the top. And then the two left and right sides and the front and back sides. So then we add all those up together and you get 132. So this would be the area of the square prism, surface area. So now let's do the pyramid. So in this one, we just need to find the areas of the lateral faces. We don't actually have to find the area of the base because we're not going to include that. So according to our formula, how many lateral faces are there? 4. So we're doing 4 of this. And then how do you find the area of a triangle? 1/2 the base times the height. So 1/2 of 6 times 8. And then there's 4 of those. That's why you see 4 on the outside, multiplying it times 4 times. So 1/2 times 6 times 8 and then times 4 equals 96. So that's the surface area of the lateral sides, all of the sides of that pyramid. So then to get to the entire surface area of the composite solid, you're going to add the 132 plus 96 to equal 228. So the surface area of this composite solid is 228 square meters. Okay? I would always have my journal out with all of these formulas that you guys are going to need. All these formulas in this chapter. Make sure you have them in your journals. That's what you're going to get to use on your test. Important. All right, let's try this. Grab your piece of paper for that on your own. We're going to identify the solids that make up the composite solid, and then we're going to find the surface area. So make sure you read these instructions. So identifying the solids is first, okay? And then we're going to find the surface area. So for number 2, I'm just going to stick this way in the corner here. What 2 shapes make up this solid? Well, we have the bottom portion, which would be a cylinder, and then the top part, which is a cone. So this is your key. You're going to use cylinder and cone surface areas to solve for this. Okay, for number 3 over here, let's go ahead and talk about what shapes are here. The bottom is a rectangular prism. I'm going to squeeze it in, rectangular prism. And the top looks like a triangle on the end, so this one is a triangular prism. Okay, and you're going to use the surface area of those 2 things to find this total. So let's go back over here to number 2 for the cylinder and cone. So you need to grab your 2 equations for surface area of a cylinder and surface area of a cone. The only difference is, think about here, this portion, they touch, so we're not going to actually use the base of the cone or the top of the cylinder. Okay, that's not going to be part of our surface area. So let's start with the cone. The surface area of a cone formula, grab your journals if you don't have it, is pi r squared plus pi rl. Okay, well this portion is the base, so we're not going to use that. So all we need is the pi rl. Okay, so the cone surface area is 3.14 times, what's the radius? 3 yards. And the height is 5. So the surface area of the cone would be 3.14 times, what's 3 times 5? 15. So 3.14 times 15 would give you 47.1. So now let's do the cylinder. So the surface area for a cylinder equation is 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi RH. Now the difference here is this first part is the base because there's 2 of them, top and bottom. Well, we only need 1, so we're going to take out that 2 and just do pi r squared. Okay, so you're going to get 3.14 times the radius, which is 3 squared, plus 2 times 3.14 times the radius times the height. Okay, now let's multiply all this. Let's see. 3 squared, which is 3 times 3, times 3.14. That gives you 28.26 plus 2 times 3.14 times 3 times 5. It's 94.2. Now we add that to our 28.26. $122.46. Now, this is for the cylinder and this is for the cone. So to get our total surface area, we need to add these 2 together. So 122.46 plus 47.1 gives me a grand total of, let's see here, I'm going to use red up here, 169.56. Label this yards squared. I'm going to do the other shape on another page. So make sure you've labeled this cylinder, cone, and then this was for the cone, this was for the cylinder, and then you add them together to get the total surface area, which is 169.56. All right, let's do number 3 on another page. All right, again, it asked us to, I know we already did it, but we're identifying the solids. So this is for number 3. And we have a rectangular, I have more room, so prism. That would be the bottom part. and a triangular prism, which is the top part. And again, think about the fact that this base and roof touch each other, so we're not going to include that when we find the answer to this. So let's work with, how about the rectangular prism first? So you're going to have, to find the surface area, you just find the area of each sides of these. Okay, some of them you need to multiply times 2. So let's think about, the bottom is the first one. Let's think about just this bottom part. Let me use a different color. We have 3 times 5. And we only need one of those because the top part is part of the inside, so we're not going to use that. All right, now let's think about this front shape. So that's 3 times 3, right? How many of those do we have? The front and the back. So there's 2 of those, of the 3 times 3. Okay, and then our last shape would be this side wall, but there's 1 on each side, right? So this would be 5 times 3. So 2 of those, 5 times 3. Okay, so let's simplify this. 3 times 5, 15. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 5 times 3 is 15. Times 2 is 30. Okay, let's add all those together. So we have 30 plus 18 plus 15, which would be 63. Okay, so this is for the rectangular prism, right? So now let's look at the triangular prism. Okay, so let me erase some of this sketching on here. All right. So let's do, we're not going to do the base because that's part of the inside. Let's do the easy part first. Let's do this back wall. Okay, you can see this back wall is 4 high and 5 deep. Okay, so surface area of this one is 5 times 4. Now, are there 2 sides to this one? No, because you have that weird slanted piece, right? Well, the weird slanted piece is 5 and then 5 going the depth. So 5 length, 5 depth. So you're going to say plus 5 times 5 on that one. Okay, and then the last part is this little triangle. How do you find the area of a triangle? 1/2 the base, which is 3, times the height, which is 4. And how many triangles do we have there? We have the front side and the back side. So then we would need 2 of those all together. So let's simplify this. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 5 is 25. Plus, let's do the inside. 3 times 4 is 12. Times 1/2, which would be 6. But 6 times 2, because there's 2 of them, would be 12. And then 12 plus 25 plus 20 gives you 57. So that is the area of the triangular prism. Right? So now to get our total shape, we need to add the triangular prism to the rectangular prism. Use a different color. So we have 63 plus 57 to equal 120 centimeters squared. All right, so the key to this is to break it into pieces that you understand how to find the surface areas. Please keep your formulas with you. I'm not asking you to memorize them. When you are finding the surface areas, please be sure if you see that it's going to be inside this shape, like here, this top part of the cylinder, we're not including that on part of the surface area. Okay, it's just what would be the outside if I were to wrap this in gift wrap. It's a good way to think about it, okay? All right, so we've already done, let's see, this is lesson 6.6. You have done on your own numbers 1 through 3. You need to do the practice and problem solving numbers 3 through 11, and then 19 through 21. That's it.